I was thinking about it this morning. 9 years ago, I gave a talk at the first OAuth conference in New York. And I was the weird one out because I wasn't talking about AppSec stuff. I looked through a bunch of military books and made up this thing. I was like, oh yeah, so I'll just call it red teaming because that's the military guys do. And I'll talk about how we could just like break into all sorts of shit and like pick locks and like bust badges and just do whatever and like make our pseudo James Bondness, but like the kind of hood fat hacker kid way. And so I just put a whole bunch of stuff on the screen, and it's funny to see how long now it's taken. My measurement is 9 years for the industry to destroy some random term that we make. So I'm hoping that we can make up more terms, maybe today, maybe this week, and like make them last for more than 9 years, or at least make them not change for a little while. Because I think part of what we're doing is trying to figure out, like children, right? Like we're trying to figure out our own language. So I want to encourage everybody to keep trying to figure out that language and figure out what sticks. When I was thinking about that earlier, I started to say, well, how have I contributed to the bad? Because I can't really, I can easily reflect on everybody else's, like, this is why you suck, but it's kind of promoting the same problem. So I had to figure out like sort of where I brought bad into the industry. Before I go deeply into that, I have to thank these guys for putting it on. It is really hard to put on conferences. Like, has anybody in here put on a conference before? Yeah, it's super hard. It's way harder than it looks. So I want to take a moment to thank you so much. Because this is how people learn stuff that's not written down. This is how people learn stuff where we don't even know what we don't know until we stand out in the hallway and someone goes, hey, the thing in your talk, I already figured that out like 2 years ago. I just thought it was dumb. And you're like, no, that's amazing. I have my own disclaimers. My disclaimers probably break the code of conduct in many, many areas. But I don't care. I am not here to offend people. I consider every person in this room a peer of mine. And I say that no matter what your experience level is, because I know for sure I can learn something from every single one of you that I have no idea what that is. And I'm gonna accept that up front. The only thing I'm gonna ask you to accept from me is that sometimes I go a little bit faster than politeness would take me and use words that skip social sensitivities. But I do care enough to try and say, hey, I'm understanding that and want you to know that I don't intend for you to be offended. And if I do, you'll know exactly when I intend to do it because I will point it out. So that's me. I've been in this industry for almost 20 years. It's been an interesting ride, going from kind of being at the bottom of doing networking and doing all sorts of random computering stuff, all the way up to running large services organizations, even going through and running carrier organizations, being parts of audit companies, which, God, KPMG sucked. And then trying to be on boards to try and change things and get to be part of things. Starting a series of conferences. Anybody ever been to a B-Sides? Yeah. It started off as a good way for sponsors to pay for our drinking. And then we were like, oh, damn, we were drinking and a conference broke out. We're like, we should do this again. That was super fun. And then we did, and we kept doing it, and now there's been, almost 246 different countries, which is crazy to me. But it just goes to show you that free drinking inspires lots of interesting things. This is my career history, right? People are supposed to say, hey, this is why you should trust me, because I've done the thing. So I've done the thing all over the place. Now I'm part of almost 10 years in at a security company called Laura's that I was able to start because I was just sick of making everybody rich. And I thought, well, if I'm gonna kill myself for my job, I may as well do it for myself. We do pen testing. This is one of my favorite pen testing graphics ever. You know, yeah, found 40 things. Oh, I suck, I can't get anything. Ooh, this is exploitable. Yes, screenshots. Oh shit, the project's over. Yeah, it happens that way. So we do testing. We're largely a services company. We don't sell products. So I can't tell you which thing to put in place of the other thing. I can talk to you about how it works and we can figure it out together. But we try and stay just in our wheelhouse of being a sparring partner, being a coach. We do things like code review. We do some application security testing. We try and help people find things, find problems, find issues. We do incident response. All right, you're kind of awake. You're probably more awake than me. Risk assessment? Okay, good. Physical security? We also do some red teaming, which my initial take on that stuff was full scope, go after everything, mixed discipline. If you can break in and go through the rafters and drop something and tap a line and be able to do it as nation state, fake James Bondy, whatever you want, do that stuff too. I have had that shit happen. And I wish I could have taken a picture, but I was too busy fearing for my life because I was walking over a string of like little cubicles trying to get into a data center when I was working at Sprint. And there's these like two older ladies who were secretaries who were stationed like right outside of where the data center was. And of course, I like put my foot on a piece of the conduit and slip off of it and just like nesty plunge through this drop ceiling and land directly on her desk as she's like sitting there typing. I just go, and so the whole like room collapses around her and she freaks out and I have no idea how, but somehow like on my way down, she grabbed her keyboard out so that she could just start beating the crap out of me with it. And I was like, you know, and I can't even breathe because I'd slammed on this lady's desk and she's just beating the brakes off of me with a keyboard. And I'm like trying to crawl out and I'm like, I'm from security. And she's like, ah. I'm sorry, I had to relive that for a second. It hurt. Okay, what am I here to talk about? So in my reflection of some of the stuff that I feel that has gone awry, to the same term of red teaming, I feel like we just have some problems with our taxonomy, right? Like we're really trying to learn some language, but the language that we're learning tends to be driven a little bit more by sales than it does the engineers or the people that are doing it, or even really the people who are consuming the stuff. So I think my first point in this is like we need to get on the same page. Like, and I honestly don't care what page it is. I don't care if we call it Boogaloo 6 versus 9 and like we all know what that is. Like that's fine with me. I just feel like we need to start getting to a point where we can standardize. We have to get to some common nomenclature that like everybody understands that you doing this is the same thing as somebody else doing that. Because I think clients go through some serious bottle shock when, you know, they have the $20,000 pen test and then you're like, $20,000 pen test is I hit scan, or $20,000 pen test is like, I dropped Ode on you because I was bored, I fucked up everything. And you're like, whoa, these aren't the same things. And then you don't really know which one you're supposed to have, so people are just like, Russian roulette, hope they don't break anything. All right, so some attempts at that. Being joking. I mean, I don't know, it'd be hilarious if it was in marketing that way. Like, red teamer, I hit autopone and I moved laterally, ha ha ha, stole your stuff. The purple teaming one I think is funny because people just get so attached to the whole color wheel, like everybody's in first grade, that they're just like, oh, executive, you know what's wrong with your network? Oh, it's cool, just draw purple on it, you'll be better. They don't actually think that way. These people are executives because they're wicked smart. And they're really good at what they do, despite what you may think are the pricks that they may be. Like, that's why they're in that position, and I'm not, well, I'm really not. So I mean, we gotta like up the language to them to try and speak to their level, and talking in a color scale pretty much either means that we're like baby talking to them and look like idiots, or they're like, hey, I'm not dumb, I can understand something bigger than a color. I put adversarial engineer in there because that's what I try and explain to anybody on my team we all are. Like, our job is to emulate adversaries, and that's what we're literally built to do. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Like, I am not supposed to be coloring on your network, I am supposed to be working. So we look at those things in some ways. I think I would like us, if it is something that any of these things come up in the brain space of what you do today, if you hear any of these things and you're like, I can fix it, like, please fix it. Like, please fix it. I've been trying for 20 years and I haven't been able to fix it. So the best I thought I could do is bring up a whole bunch of stuff that I'm like, hey, I haven't been able to fix this, and own my failures of where I've brought it to the industry, because y'all are way smarter than me and could probably do it. These guys are in the way sometimes. So not to dog the good salespeople, because, you know, stereotypes are true because it's the majority, but there are some really good ones who truly do care, and they're out there to actually make sure that you succeed. And I applaud those people. I just wish we found a way to signal amplify those more than the people who are just like, oh, bro, you want a vulnerability assessment? I got you. They're like, oh, bro, you want a red team? I got you. Same person, same test. Extra zero. You know, like, cool, I can feel it in my Ferrari again. It hurts me. It hurts me because I know how much work everybody puts into it. And I want to see that work realized somewhere. Other pieces of taxonomy. How many of you have seen that equation before? Right? It's CISSPs, right? The ALE, ARO, bleh, word salad that's completely irrelevant. Like, what are you gonna do? Be like, annual rate of occurrence. Be like, hey, LoSec, yo, I know you guys have been sleeping for a little bit. What's up? Are you gonna hit me this year? How many times are you gonna hit me? 6? 5? Are you gonna dox all our stuff or just a little bit? You know, like, and that's supposed to be your calculation? Like, your risk people must have gangster connections in order to try and actually figure that shit out. So I think we have some problems with, like, how we use words. It's on the edge of offensive, kinda. But in how we use words, we also go back to this same color scale that's widely different. I mean, how much different shit do you have between scanners where one thing says it's a low and another one says it's a medium, the other one says it's a high? I mean, in Australia, high is apparently second from last, which sounds like stuff's extra bad, I guess. I've tried to do some of this stuff. I've tried. I feel like I've made some successes in some areas. And in other areas, I'm talking about the same stuff that I've talked about for 15 years. So that kind of makes me feel like I failed. I think there's some places where we've gotten some kind of really good momentum going. And then for whatever reason, it just kind of didn't go forward. You know, it was like, oh yeah, this is cool. We will go forward and do these kind of services, and a bunch of people are doing this thing, and then all of a sudden it gets like train wrecked back into some scanner. And I'm like, but why don't you make the scanner better? Don't make the service crappier. Like, and so I feel like there's some word usage that all of us can add some effort to, whether it's those of you who are really into math, who can start getting down to the table of like, show me your risk calculation of why this is high, medium, or low. And then they go, because the scanner said it was. And you're like, great, that doesn't fit with math. Let's try this again. And start holding people accountable for some of those rankings, because the business actually makes their decision off that stuff. Like, despite what we may think, like, they actually use those dashboards to make big time calls, like big money, big time calls on like, what are we going to do with this $25 million? Look at the spreadsheet. Oh man, that one is extra high. Apply money. You know, like that one's super extra high. Apply money. Oh, that one's medium high. I think we can cut that from the budget. You know, like, and they're expecting us to bubble those things up in a reasonable way. So I think we have to be accountable how those rankings work. I've tried that with trying to make some standards. I don't know if any of you have ever seen P-Test, the penetration testing execution standard. I was jealous. I was like, oh, OWASP has a standard? What the hell? So we were just like, get wasted in Europe and write a standard together. It happened. It got referenced from all these other places, and then it sort of tapered off because it takes a lot of work to do that stuff. The horrible TV show, oh God. Like by the time we got to the second filming of the TV show, because at first like my heart was in the right place. I was like, yeah, we're gonna teach people cool stuff and they're gonna be more secure when we're done. And by the second filming, I was like, if I hear one more person tell me use that when I'm not on camera, I'm going to pimp slap them and drag them into the camera's view and let them know that they're getting the brakes beaten off of them and they should have secured their life better. So I just didn't work. I was not fit for television. But I also figured out that if you only kind of try, you only kind of get results. So I'm putting that one out there to you guys of what else can we do? How else can we, I mean, do you guys agree that we have some taxonomy problems? Like in how things are spoken between people or how services are consumed, or even if you're a consumer, like any of you guys consumers like buy testing? Do you feel like you get the same thing when you say the same word? Like when you're just like application security test and somebody's like what's the next questions you get? Like how many lines of code? Who are your developers? Yeah, right? Like give me access, you know, like what does it mean? Is it an application? What's the platform? Like it's all over the place.
It gets even worse, Chris. You can send the same RFP to 10 vendors and you get 10 completely different responses. Price, timing.
Dude, have you made aliases and sent the same RFP to the same vendor?
I have not done that.
Try it. It's super fun. At one point, I was thinking about trying to do a talk on like why other security companies suck, but I was like, I have to also show that mine sucks in the same way. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that. But I went through some of the research part of it, and it was freaking hysterical. Like, I mean, same company, $10,000, $100,000, same exact RFP. And I was like, damn. But my alias was just different of like what they could look up about the company. And one was a really expensive, lots of money company, and the other one was a really small company. And they were just like, that's cool, at zero. Does this make sense? Or am I just blathering? Probably both. Okay. Scalability. We have a major problem with scale. I feel like that's my every scale moment. We have a really, really big problem with scale. We have a big problem with scale for a bunch of different ways. Right? We have this negative unemployment rate. Oh, I'm sorry about the Nancy Kerrigan thing. It was late. We have a negative unemployment rate, right? Everybody know that? Know that like there's more jobs than people, like by minus 1 million, which is a pretty big number. Like if the NFL was minus 1 million, I might have a shot. And that's wicked sad. You have the instant senior, part of the same thing, right? When it's a really small talent pool and you have a bunch of like compliancy audit people barking at you like, you have to have a security team. They're like, I don't give a shit, just get the auditor out of here, just hire anybody. And they were like, you look like you're drunk and go to conferences, you're my security guy. You know, like, but it's so true, right? You know, we have this huge philosophy, like the security market is pretty much, I guess in my mind, the security market right now is way more like dongles for Apple stuff than Apple, right? Like we're the aftermarket shit that you have to buy it, because otherwise nothing works. You're like, I have a headphone jack. They're like, don't know what that is, but you can use this. And you're like, oh, damn it, more shit I have to carry around. And then you just end up with a backpack full of stuff that you have no idea what any of it does, and you can never find the right connector. Pretty much the story of security, right? Just a ton of shit on your network. You have kind of a limited idea of anything that it does. No one really controls it, and you just like hope that it works. We have hardly any apprenticeships. I spent a lot of time the last couple weeks like looking for apprenticeships in security programs. There's hardly any. Like in a profession where we're so desperate for good help, what the hell are we doing? Why aren't we like actually giving people on-the-job training? Like we're blaming them. We're being like, you don't provide us enough security people, colleges, and they're just like, we can't train them. We don't have any of the expensive Oracle shit that you have. And they're like, oh, okay, well, we'll get them in a VM. And you're like, all right, that's not gonna, forget it. Like, it's like, and then the salesperson comes in and they're like, bro, my scanner will do all of that. And you're like, I'm out. But I don't know, maybe it's job security for us. Maybe like we don't train people because we're all too afraid to lose our job. Anybody ever think that might be a possibility? I mean, like, people in the profession are pretty smart. I think one of us could just be like, oh, so I could automate all of this stuff, but then they might just like automate me out of work. So I'm gonna like halfway automate it so that I can do it all and become puppet master, but maybe not go farther than that, because, you know, what if there's no budget and they just choose the machine over me? What can we do? My only time that I really looked at this problem, it bugged me, but made me kind of happy at the same time. So I was going onto some panel at DerbyCon with HD and John Strand and Ed Scotus and a bunch of other, Katie, and all of them were on this panel. And I get frustrated with panels because I feel like it's just like the easiest phone in, like, oh man, good thing I don't have to give a talk. It's just a panel, and like I can do nothing. So I try and prepare for those things, and it was about the future of security. And shockingly enough, I was the only person up there, and everyone in the audience like hated me, because I was the only one up there to be like, all of you shouldn't be here. Like, in the future of security, you shouldn't be here. Or this should be like the entirety of the security community. Like all of it, like everyone worldwide should be right here. And people were really pissed, and I'm like, well, we have to figure out how we can scale upwards. And the only way we're gonna do that is by reducing the level of complexity of being in the game, right? So that we can have people of lower skill sets be able to function and do things for us at scale. Or we have to be able to make the bar to entry really high so that we can cost justify the $500,000 security person that really knows their stuff. But in order to do that, we still have to have coverage. So you have to have the machines. So I started looking at like, where else do we have this problem? And the clear answer is in software development, right? In software development, we have had and solved this problem pretty largely, right? You go from the 60s to the 70s, people are like, what language is that? Oh, I don't know. But it makes the computer go beep beep. You're like, that's cool. Mine does too, but it just says it a different way. And then the 70s to the 80s, and they're like, okay, that's the same language that I know. Right on. I know how to look at this. And then the 80s to the 90s, you get them releasing black box testing and saying, oh, now we have style rules, now we have ways to test, we have units with inside testing, we have some standardization of profiling, things like that. The 80s to the 90s, you start getting into development lifecycle pattern, 95 or whatever, right, is when Scrum technically got like really started. You start moving into development at general paces where you can now move and go, okay, this is all of the stuff. I need you to audit all of the code, and you take it in one giant blob. And mind you, during this time period, from the 60s to the 70s, 70s to the 80s, do you know how much programmers cost? They were crazy, because there was like 1,000 of them. The cost for them was so high. And the companies go, well, we have to make all this software because this is the coolest thing we've ever seen. And they go, well, I can't afford it. And if I could afford it, I still couldn't do it because there aren't enough people to actually go get the job done. So they had to figure out how to scale. They had to figure out how to bite down, not bite up. They had to figure out, how do we take this skill set and try and automate things? How do we move it down to a lower skill level? When are we going to get to a point in the 2000s where we're really metricizing QA testing? And then those people have a completely different level of skill than the people at the top of the food chain. I don't anymore need a $250,000 person to do the QA test. I can get a $30,000 person. And now I start to scale. Like, we need to do that. And we have to do that. I don't really know how we're gonna do it yet, but we have to do it. Like, we need to force multiply. Everyone in this room needs a bajillion bots that do the security thing, because as it grows, we're not going to be able to keep up with the rate of stuff we need to do. So think about that. How can we scale? I don't really know. Measurement. Measurement is something that we're extra bad at. I say that because in the beginning of my career, I thought that doing testing was a measurement. And then I realized my measurements were totally made up. And then I had to keep measuring because people expected things to be measured. And I'm like, it's made up. And they're like, no, I want it on a scale. Like, it's a 7. And they're like, why is it a 7? I'm like, because I chose 7. You know? And then you try and justify it. And they're like, no, I need to know why. And you're like, because bad things. And then you start breaking stuff and you're like, see, it broke. And they're like, oh my God, that's a 10. And you're like, I thought it was a 7. You know, like, my bad, it's a 10. And then you go to somebody else, you're like, this is a 10. And then it doesn't break for them the same way. And you're like, oh, it's a 2. And then you get challenged. Then you have no idea what anything in rank says anymore. So like, I'm sorry, I have promoted this same problem, but at least I'm trying to be aware of it and offer that we need to figure out some way to fix it. Why don't we measure anything? Because banana is not a user. Yeah, banana is not a unit of measure. I wish it was. It would make everything way easier. Like, how many security are you? I am 3 banana. And they'd be like, okay. You know, like, I don't have to feel bad about that, like I gave them a wrong thing. I was talking about this with some people last night, and it was weird because I had this in my slide deck, but I wasn't as angry about it as I got last night when I was talking with somebody else. And I got like violently angry about it. I was like really, really pissed because I started to explain to myself in my own career, being on the defense side versus the offense side, or working with clients, like, we don't measure anything. Like, can you think of anything we actually measure to say, here's a security thing, firewall, IDS, bullshit, magic box that stops APT, whatever, right? Do we measure it working? All of these systems are interconnected, right? A single failure reduces us to not having any visibility whatsoever, right? And we have no visibility of the thing that worked yesterday if it works today. That's the part that I have problems with. I spent a ton of time, I don't know why, I mean, I know why I did, because it was super valuable at the end of it, but I try and do skills trades with people, and I don't know if any of you guys do that, but it's the most valuable thing I've ever done in my career, is to go up to somebody, I'm like, your job is super cool, can we do a skill trade? And they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And you're like, here's all the stuff that I do. Like, do you want to come hang out with me at work for a couple days, and I can come hang out with you at work for a couple days? And they're like, yeah, that sounds awesome. So I did a skill trade with a bunch of guys from United who run the flight simulators. And it was the coolest thing. And I completely trashed my InfoSec career because of it. Because every single thing that they did every day was just like, Chris, this is why you're an idiot and you screwed the industry up. Because these people are there literally to make the pilots safer. And they build all of these crazy scenarios to try and get those cats cool under fire so that when it comes time to sully the plane, they got it. Right? Like, they can just handle it. They're like, doo-doo, landed on the river, it's all good. Did this in the simulator 10,000 times. And it just kicked my butt because I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to do for people being a tester. I'm supposed to simulate them into comfort. But when I don't have any measurement of that, and I say, this reflective DLL injection BS thing happened today, got caught, instrumentation finds it, IR process gets triggered, blah, blah, blah. The next day, it updates its signatures, it kicks that signature out. I have no idea that that happened. I'm totally blind. The next day, the attack works. I have no idea why it works on the attacker side. And it's something that I've struggled with for so long, because I'm like, if I just attack the same company the same exact way for like 4 or 5 years, I'll eventually get in that exact same way, which drives me crazy. So my shot at trying to do some of this stuff, this is an eye chart, I'm sorry. Effectively what the columns are is like the life cycle of an attack, so from recon all the way out through exfil. And then sitting down with people in their environment and saying, tell me every single widget, APT, gangster, pro, whatever the freak you have, and where it fits against an actual attack lifecycle. Like, where does that tool, where does that thing, where does that process, where does that whatever the blinky box is or piece of software that magically defends you from Zeus's hellfire or whatever, where is it and where does it fit on the scale, right? Anyone ever done this? It seems kind of stupid, because you would think that they would like sort of already know this, but most people do not know this. I have never gone into a client where they have done this or have an idea of what part of the attack lifecycle their tools work in. Now, what an invaluable tool I found to the defenders. All of the companies we've ever done this for, their defenders have this map printed in the SOC. Because as soon as they go, oh, trigger from this thing, or oh, it's this kind of attack, it's in this tool, this tool, this tool, this tool, this tool. Cool, go pull all that stuff. And it's awesome, because they respond to shit way faster, just for some stupid Excel hood-drawn map that I made. So we have kind of a control inventory for what our defenses are supposed to do. And then you use an attacking one, right? So anybody played or looked at MITRE's attack framework? Anyone? Cool, all right. So for those of you who haven't or haven't looked, right? MITRE, bunch of really smart researchers, and unfortunately I played a little bit, which probably devalues the project. It got together and said, let's try and think of every single type of macro attack that we can do across all of these different phases. And if we can get to a point where we can map them out, it brings us some really interesting research and data points. We can start to say, what are the APT groups? How do they break down into this kind of piece and item? What techniques do they use? And if I can go through and I can simulate all of those things, what do I get to do? I could tell you how bad that APT group is going to be against us, because I've already simulated each one of these different pieces. They don't have to do it. I can just go and read the, like, who did Mandiant hack and pretend that they were an APT group report, and then go, oh, hey, this is how they did it with this one. It's APT 209. And then go to my little handy dandy chart, go beep, boop, 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 and tell you exactly what the risk is. And the risk would then be predicated by, can we see it? Can we not see it? Or can we sort of see it? And even in that rudimentary fashion, I can now start predicting the future. Weird, because it's just testing. It's just unit testing, right? Like, it's something software people have done over and over and over again. But if I can take this map and iterate everything over this map, I can actually tell you if your tools are working every single day. That's crazy. That's crazy talk, right? The bears. That's so cute. But I want to try and figure out how else we can solve some of these problems, right? Because I think having some of this information is really important. So, Chris Gates and I are giving a talk on Saturday in South Dakota at John Strand's conference in Deadwood. And we built some instrumentation. Chris built instrumentation. I just had ideas for stuff, and he's a ninja, and I'm just like, oh, it's a thing. And he's like, and just like kicks it out, right? So we decided, sitting at his coffee table last week, that we were going to make up a new term. So now we have a measurement that I get to take. 1, how long before it's in somebody else's marketing material? 2, how long is it just a product that's like in one of those rooms sponsoring a conference? 3, how long does it take us to completely destroy the term and turn it into something it's not? Or 4, can we actually make it do something? So the idea is that if you automate a red team and you can create blue team analytics, we have defensive telemetry, right? We have the ability to use our instrumentation to get measurements to understand the function of our environment. Imagine being able to every single time say, I can find coverage, I can find detection, I can understand whether we manually responded, automated responded, right? I can use my tools to actually do that. I mean, a quick example, I can run a command line using, vagrant and celery workers and run a command on 15 different hosts and have the instrumentation from that host pick it up, drop it back off, say yes, it found it in the SEM through some other tool, and then query the API of the SEM to say, did it find it and how long did it take? Like, I can make a pre-flight checklist so that every morning when your defender follows the sun and changes from another defender, you hit a button and go, everything works the same way it did yesterday, or it doesn't. We've never had something like that. And I don't think it's really revolutionary. I think it's just like us trying to get our legs underneath us. Dumpster fire of ego. This is another one for us. These are bad because they're more personal and no one wants to talk about them. The technical stuff is easy because we can problem solve, right? But these ones are really, really hard. We have a huge ego problem in our industry, right? This is like the standard hacker look, right? So, I don't know how many books I've read and yoga random practices I've done to try and figure something out around this. I can't get anywhere, but I could take what Eckhart Tolle said is pretty much be aware. Because once you're aware, you can actually do something with it and it doesn't exist. It can't exist because you're aware of it. Today, beyond all these technical problems, I really ask if you guys can all be aware. That doesn't mean a negative or anything else. It's just a request that you might hear something you don't like, and before you jump into problem solving or what it is or context or whatever else, try and just sit with it and be aware for a second, because it may change everything. How else do we do it? I don't know. I mean, make more COCs, make less of them, have a non-COC room and a COC room, and like let it play out chaotic and like have them battle, or I have no idea. It's the adulting thing is hard enough for me. I can't tell other people how to do it. But there's paths. There's some things I don't like. I don't like people being offended as a way to dominate other people. I think that that's bullshit. I think it's total bullshit, and I think it neuters and destroys our society. I think our differences are the sole reason that we should appreciate somebody else, because if somebody's the same as me, I already know how to appreciate that. And it's important, right? It's really important to me. So, food for thought. Last one, masks. Anybody wear a bunch of different masks? Yeah, right? Yeah. I'm the mask of not put my hand up. Got it. Yeah, right on. I'm too cool to do that shit. I have to wear a ton of masks, right? I have to be like DEF CON Chris. I have to be professional drinking Chris. Note, if you look at that picture, the liquid is in the air and I'm catching it. Yeah, see that little string? That's awesome. I have to be talk Chris, right? Where I have a bunch of combinations of those things, but I have to mute other parts of me depending on where I'm talking, because like I can ratchet up and down, and then sometimes I forget and I blow it, and then people are really pissed at me. I have to be like team building Chris. I have to be like skier Chris. I have to be rapper Chris. I have to be yoga Chris. I have to be TV Chris. I have to be fucking pirate Chris. I have to be Santa Claus. I say all those things not for me at all, but because each and every one of you have a different you have to be. And part of the biggest bit of pain I've had in this industry in the last couple years is losing people to the mask. It kicks my butt. It really does. I mean, losing them professionally, losing them physically in this world. We wear so many of these masks just to try and keep up appearances and try and compete with the person next to us instead of collaborate with the person next to us. And I think it's a really important thing to get present with. And I know it's mopey and not as fun and easy as technical problems, but it's a hard problem that if we solve it, every single person here gets to live a happier life. Every person here gets to take the mask that they don't want to put on that day and put it aside and be like, can I just not be that person right now? And someone gives you the possibility of going, okay, we'll just take it out of this context because these other people aren't ready for maskless Chris. So like, go into the little lab room and you can spew your crazy shit, but when you come out, put the mask back on. And it feels better. And the more and more you do it, the more free you become. Finally, I just want to give some notes to being at a conference with people because, like you said, with the newfound social justice warriorism of needing to have rules and people not being able to pay attention to themselves or self-govern, I figured I would put out some of mine. Leave all that crap at the door. Like, you're with family. If you don't feel like you are, get to know them because they are. It doesn't matter what they like or what body part they like to chew on or whatever thing that they do or whatever creepy weird shit that they're into. I mean, you guys are still in the same profession. You still do a lot of the same stuff. You still breathe, you still eat, even though some of you don't eat meat or do eat meat or whatever. I mean, like, throw that shit away. Like, we got a lot of things to learn and we got a lot of horsepower in this room to harness, and if we don't connect, we're just spinning tires. So respect each other, be excellent to each other, respect the crew. They bust their ass to put conferences on so that people can learn. Like, that's huge. I wish there was this stuff when I was young. I mean, I'd probably be a conference loser. I'd just be in conferences all the time, like, oh. But they put so much effort into it. Like, step out of your way in the hallway to just thank a random person with a shirt on because they did something to let you be here. I said before, everybody has something to offer. You have something to offer everyone. Don't diss yourself, you do. And everyone has something to offer to you. So whether it's sitting in a talk or whether it's sitting in the hallway, like, get yours. Like, get yours, learn it, find it, figure it out, ask people questions. If they're a prick, just be like, prick. You know, like just stranger danger it and run away and ask somebody else the question. Or like enroll somebody else and be like, this person was super mean to me. Maybe you know this answer, and then that person will like school this person. You'd be like, oh, I feel so much better. And this person's like, oh shit, I didn't even know that. Thanks. But please try and celebrate how different we are instead of working towards this homogenous gray area that we tend to be drifting into. Like, I am positive each one of you are excellent, amazing people who also do shit that I am not into. I am positive every one of you do something and I'm like, I would not do that. And that's on me. But just try and celebrate that. Try and enjoy people for who they are, because you might learn something really cool. My note, Tiny Potato believes in you. I believe in you. Be well and learn shit. Thank you.